Good morning, everyone. So, we're continuing our lesson of Introduction to Forces. We have talked about contact and non contact forces. We discussed the difference between speed and velocity. And now we're talking about net forces. Today, we're going to talk about net forces and what is a net force and how to calculate a net force. So, basically, a net force is the total amount of force acting on an object. Total amount. That means the sum of amounts. Okay, that means adding all the amount or subtracting. Okay, we're going to be using addition and subtraction when we talk about net forces. For example, look at this rope here, and you have two people pulling it this way, two people pulling it that way. So these forces are acting on this rope. Let's say, for example, people pulling it, two people pulling it this way, they're pulling it with a force of 40 newtons. Okay, first of all, force, the unit of measurement of force is Newton, and we represent it with an N. So people are pulling it this way with 40 newtons, and two people are pulling it this way, let's say with 60 newtons. So the forces acting on this object would have to be their opposite. We have to subtract, so it would be 60 minus 40. It would not this way, of course, sorry. We'll talk about calculating later. So basically, net force is just basically the sum of forces acting on an object. It's called a net force, the sum of the forces acting on one object. Let's look at how to calculate net force, for example. So you have three types of calculation of net forces. You have opposite direction. So look at this. This is a box. Okay, this is a box. There's a force pulling it this way, but a force pulling it that way, but they're pulling it in opposite directions. So it's pulling it this way with 10 newton, and another force pulling it that way with 10 newton. So the forces are equal here. So the net force would be 0. So it's balanced, and the box doesn't move at all because the two forces are pulling it at exactly the same force. How do you calculate it? You get, if the directions are opposite, you do 10 minus 10, because it's 10 minus 10. Why? Because they're opposite. They're pulling it in opposite directions, and the net force is 0. So these are balanced forces. Okay. Let's see. This is another example down there, but this is same direction. So a force is pulling it this way, another force is pulling it that way. So we add the two forces because they're pulling in the same direction. So it's 10 newton plus 10, we add. So if they're going in the same direction, we add. If they're going in different directions, we subtract. So 10 plus 10, that would be 20 net forces. So this is unbalanced, and the box moves to the right. The box would move this way. Okay, so they have another type of also the same opposite direction. So 10 newton this way, 8 newton that way, but we have to subtract here. So 10 minus 8, you get 2. These are unbalanced, and the box would move left. It would move this way. Why? Because this is moving it with a stronger force. 10 is more than 8. So the person pulling the box this way would be able to pull it more, and it would move this way because he's pulling with more force. But basically, this is how you calculate the net forces. You either add if they are going in the same direction, or you subtract if they are going in different directions. Okay, let's look at the example here. Same thing here. 10 minus 10. Okay, because this way we already talked about this. Net is 0. See, he's pulling the ball this way, he's pushing it this way, and it's the same amount. Their forces is balanced. The ball stays into place. Look at this. Same direction. We said would be 20. This one would be 10. We talked about these. I want to see another example. Okay, look at this example. So the girl is pushing the piano this way at 25 newton. The boy is pulling it this way at 25 newton, but they're both going this way. So they're both going in the same direction. So we add their forces. So the net force here on this piano, the net force on the piano would have to be 20 plus 25. It would be equal to 45, as you can see here, and the piano would move in which direction? To the right. Let's look at another example here. these two dogs are playing tug of war on this rope. This dog is pulling it this way and the other dog is pulling it that way. Okay, so we have to subtract, so it would have to be, we take the bigger number when we subtract first. 12 minus 10, it would be 2 Newton, and it would be going to the right. Why to the right? Because 12 is more than 10 and this dog is able to pull it more and will take the rope with him. So that's basically how you calculate net forces. Okay, that's all we have to know for today.